Viewers, I'd like to. Okay. Do you know, viewers, sorry for the technical difficulties. This is a real world, and we are going to try to restart this study. Why do we have to do as God says or else? I've already prayed, and I would like Colleen to go into the study. Nicole said, yes, she can hear. So, Colleen, if you just read.
Okay. So
Thank,
I won't do the full introduction.
thanks,
But
Nicole.
yeah, thank you, Nicole. So I won't do the full introduction, but I just wanted to just highlight some of the things I did say in the introduction, which is basically that some people believe that that we have to do what God says, and if we don't do what God says, there's like severe consequences. But despite that, some of us are actually uncomfortable with what God has to say. And when we don't do what God says, people feel that they're punished. Some people believe that this means that God is a vindictive God. And then, do we actually have true freedom? So, we're going to be looking at that from a biblical perspective. So, do we have freedom? So going back to my first question, which I'll ask
Yeah.
again for those who didn't hear when we first introduced this topic. So my first question to yourself, Pedro, is why do some people think that with God they actually have very little freedom to live their life, if they have any at all?
Yes, thank you. And I was saying, I know that many people do have this thought in mind. Although I need to say, we're not really talking about whether people have freedom or not, but the way people perceive that they don't have any freedom because if they don't do what God says, God is going to punish them for it. So they do realize, but they don't necessarily understand why it has to be like that. So it's not really, they know they have the freedom. For instance, when I was growing up, I was saying many people, uh, including myself, we had that mentality. If something bad happened to someone, we would say, God punished you for something wrong that you did.
Mm,
And
yeah.
if we perceive that somebody was about to do something and that would be against our interest, we would be quick to say to this person, God will punish you for what you're about to do. So one way or another, God was always associated with you do what I say and you do it exactly like that, or I, God, am going to punish you. So this is the idea that pushes people to think about whether or not they have the freedom to just do whatever they want to do while knowing indeed they can choose. And it is in that context, to reuse the word that you used, they place God in a context within which he would be a vindictive God. So it's my way or the highway, and there is nothing else. And I will actively be the one um, that will make sure that if you don't do what I say, I am going to do this, and that to you in terms of punishment. So, yes, I do understand that many people think this way. Um, why they do it? Probably because they feel that this has been their experience of life and this is how God is.
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Oh, you made an important point there, Pedro. And one of the points you made me reflect back on the story of Job. And his friends were basically saying, well, you must have done something for to allow all of this to happen to you. It's the idea that, God's allowed this to happen to you and it must be for a reason. And with that said, Pedro, although I understand what you're saying, like, isn't the reality simple? And is it not true that if we do disobey God, then there are punishments and he punishes us for it?
No, the reality is not that simple. We may see it as such, but it is not. And as you were thinking about Job, probably that's where we need to go to answer this question that you're asking. Isn't it true that if we don't do what God tells us to do, we are going to be punished? If we don't obey him, we are going to be punished. Is there any evidence in the Bible? Certainly, there are passages in the Bible, and you've just referred to a story that would promote that theology. When we think about what happened with Job's friends, as you rightly said, in fact, let's go there. Let's read Job 4, verses 7 to 9, please.
Okay, I'm reading from the New English Translation. Call to mind now, who being innocent ever perished, and where were upright people ever destroyed? Even as I have seen, those who plough iniquity and those who sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed.
So these people, Job's friends, they really believe that if something bad was happening to you, it's probably because God was paying you back for your evil ways. And they thought there is no way Job would be in this situation of disaster in his life if it were not because he was deserving of that. And in another way, God was not punishing him for that. So we do have this idea where people see what is happening in your life, the disasters, as a punishment of God on you. But let's read a bit more. Job chapter 20. Let's read verses 27 to 29 this time.
The heavens reveal his iniquity, the earth rises up against him. A flood will carry him off his house, rushing waters on the day of God's wrath. Such is the lot God allots the wicked, and the heritage of his appointment from God. Wow, picture.
So, yeah, you can keep that picture there for a little while as we think about it. This is another friend. The first one was one of the friends. This one is another friend. Again, although he's making a general statement here, who do you think he has in mind when he looks at the catastrophe that he sees in Job's life? When he says the heavens reveals the heavens reveal his iniquity, the earth rises up against him. Who do you think he has in mind while seemingly making a general statement? Who do you think he has in mind?
Job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He has Job in mind because he's sitting there. The Bible tells us that when they came to comfort him, they could not say a word, and they sat there 7 days.
7 days.
They sat there and they said nothing. What do you think they were thinking about? I'll tell you, they were thinking about what we are saying now. They were thinking about when evil things happens to you in life, generally speaking, but particularly to Job. It's not because everything is fine in your life and you just being tried and tested. It's because God is paying you back for your evil ways. God is actually punishing you. And you know what? They're not the only one who think like this. As I told you, growing up,
That is true.
this was kind of a normal saying. And we know today when bad things happen to people, at the back of our minds, we may not say it to them because somehow we remember that God rebuked Job's friends at the end of the story. So we may not say it out loud, but at the back of our minds, we think that if such things are happening, it's because God is involved and he is punishing this person for something that this person did. God is actively paying back. But the
Yeah.
question that we need to ask ourselves is this really the whole of the matter? Is this really true that God pays us back for the evil things we do, and that is measured by the negative experiences that we have in life? Well, if you look at the story of Job, you will quickly say, no, 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 that's not true, and we can see it there. But at the same time, does this idea of God paying back actually go away from you? I don't think so. You see, it's still there somewhere at the back of your mind. Therefore, my answer is yes and no. Is that really the truth of the matter, that God is punishing you for what you said? I would say the answer is yes and no. But because we are in, the biblical perspective broadcast, you can't just say things like that. You have to be biblical, right?
Yes, of course.
So let me invite you to read a text to see if that can substantiate, support what my yes and no answer to whether this is the truth of the matter. Read for us, please. Exodus chapter 20, verse 5.
Okay, reading from the King James Version. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. And the New English Translation. Thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, responding to the transgression of fathers by dealing with children, to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me. And the New Living Translation. You must not bow down to them nor worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your afflictions for your affections for any other gods. I lay the sins of the parents upon the children. The entire family is affected, even children in the third and fourth generation of those who reject me.
So you can see, if you keep this there, because we're going to look at the different terms that are used there in those three different versions of the same text. But the general sense that you have here is, yes, the Bible actually talks about God being actively involved in punishing people because they did not do what he said, right? If
Yes.
you look at the KJV, it goes in the part that we are interested in, particularly. It says, God, I'm a jealous God, visiting the iniquity. Visiting. So we go from visiting the iniquity to, in the net, the second version, responding to the transgression. So the first one is visiting. That's God doing it. The second one is responding. to the transgression. That is also God doing it actively. And in the third one, it's a bit even more, it's a bit even stronger when he says, I lay the sins of the parents on the children. So
Yeah.
people have had great difficulties with this text because the idea seems very clear. And that's why I come up with the yes and the no. But before we can fully accept that, we need to actually go and see, why do we have those three different versions, visiting the iniquity, responding to the iniquity, laying the sins as God doing it actively. We need to look at what word is actually used in the original, and how much can we trust those translations so that we can make sure that we understand the text. So I invite you to take a look at what the meaning of this word is, please. You can read that for me, please.
A
Okay,
verb
so
meaning to attend, to visit, and to search out. The word refers to someone, usually God, paying attention to persons, either to do them good or to bring punishment or harm, which is found in Genesis
so
50, 24, 25, Exodus 13, 16, 1 Samuel 2, 21, and Jeremiah 23, 2.
thank you. So when we look at this, and the word, the original word used in there is pakat. That's in the Hebrew. What you observe is that there is a variety of meanings that you can choose from, and we can see that transpiring in the versions that we had: to visit, to respond to lay, a variety of meanings. And in the definition that we have here, we can see that this could be a positive as well as a negative thing. But what is being established in this text is that God is having a reaction to people's actions.
Yeah.
That must be clear to us, because what we are debating is whether people should or should not accept the idea. God says, do that. And if you don't, it's like you have no choice, you have no freedom. It's his way, or he punishes you. This definition here is important in this text. God is responding to people's actions. Now, I believe to fully understand the message of this text, we should add to it the next verse. So I will ask you to read Exodus 20, verses 5 and 6 together, please.
Okay, reading from the King James Version. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments.
You see, this is why you should not read verse 5 without verse 6, because they belong together. In them, you have two possibilities. Now, remember that our conversation is, if God says do that and you don't, it's going to be trouble in the land. It's going to be trouble in your life, because you would not have done what he told you, and you would feel like you have no other possibility. But when you read this text, the first one, you can see how it contrasts with the second one. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so they belong together. God is reacting in two different ways. If you have two different ways of God reacting, and from the first one, you understand that God is only reacting in relation to how you relate to Him, in relation to how you behave, or in relation to what He sees in you, you actually are at the center of God's action and reaction towards you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
And so already you can see that the notion of having no choice is a fallacy. It is something that doesn't really hold. It's not true. Now, the point in here is this. If God tells you in advance that if you make such a choice between this and that, this is going to happen to you and that is going to happen to you. When you choose this or that, is God more responsible than yourself in what happens to you as a consequence?
No, it's down to yourself.
That is the point that this is making. Now you can see that the question of punishment, which is the only thing we have in mind, if we don't do what God tells us to do, and that allows us to, or pushes us to see God as a vindictive God, is actually unfair. Because there is another possibility that avoids the bad consequences. So what you after is something more than the argument of having or not having a choice. Does that make sense? You have something more in mind. Because from what we see, you are responsible, depending on your choice, for what happens to you as far as God is concerned when He speaks to you. So whether the text says He will visit the iniquity, whether it says He will respond to the iniquity, or whether it says He lays the iniquity, it doesn't really make a difference, because what it establishes once more is that based on your actions that are based on your choice, then there is a consequence that God follows through with. But it's not Him in charge of it. It is you in charge of it, because He has put clearly before you both the this and the that. Are you with me?
Yeah. Can I
So
ask
let
something?
me just finish this. Let me just finish this. Just one sentence. So you will have to remember, when you ask yourself the question, and when you say that God is a vindictive God because He did not allow you this without those consequences, you will have to remember that He did not impose either this or that on you. You did.
Yeah, yeah. In light of what you've just said there, Pedro, are people more concerned with the severity of the punishment? Because people say, "Oh, the punishment doesn't fit the crime." Is the like, let's say, if he was doing it softly, not punishing them, as in wiping them out and just like tapping them on their hand, would they think it was vindictive then, or say, you know what, that was fair?
I think people can think a variety of things depending on where they are at and what they have in mind. But what they should remember when it comes to God is that, again, the principle is he reacts to you. He reacts to to the choice that you make based
Yeah.
on the opportunities that he lays before you. Are you with me? So
Yeah.
you can say God is too harsh or too soft or too in between. You can say whatever you want to say, but what you need to remember is that he does not impose. He is not more responsible than you. He is not more responsible than yourself for what happens to you when he has laid before you the consequences of this and of that, and you have made your choice. Does that make sense? I mean, you can complain about it, you can bring him to court, you can do all you want because that's what you have in mind, but it will not change the fact that it was your choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So Pedro, I do have another question, but Ruth, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. And thank you, plant-based Nicole. She says, how do I resolve the tension between Exodus 25 and Ezekiel 18:20? Thanks for that question, Nicole.
Okay, so we can, yeah, go ahead. I was saying we can have a quick look. Sorry,
yeah,
so go ahead.
You go on, Pedro. I was going to say we can put up to 20 and 5 again because we just had that, and then you can discuss this question, Pedro.
Yeah. So 25, as we had it, was God visiting the iniquity of the parents on the children, responding to the iniquity of the parents to the children, and laying the sins of the parents on the children. Yeah, but again, remember, we said we should not separate this verse from the second one, right?
Yes.
Which is verse 6, because what it does is it clearly establishes that it is not a one-way thing. It's a two-way thing based on the choice that you make. Now, I do understand, Jabari, if you can give us the Ezekiel 20:18, 18:20, that if one of you wants to read for us.
The soul that sinneth, it shall die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him.
All right. So this seems to be in complete opposite to what verse 5 of Exodus 20 is saying. And if you took them in context, you would realize that it's not really the case. Now, I guess we will continue to establish a fact about God. But for now, what we can say is we do know that God is fair. And when he reacts to people, he reacts to the people who are involved. He doesn't, if you like, bring judgment on people who are not being judged or people who have nothing to do in the case. He is not random. That is very clear. Now, when he says this in Ezekiel, he is speaking in a particular context. Ezekiel is the prophet in Babylon at the time of the exile, the second deportation from, I believe, 597, he's brought to Babylon. And from Babylon, he has a ministry for the people who are in Babylon. So they are dealing with this particular context, and the messages that God is giving to him have to do with the substances they are. Now, in Exodus 5, and by the way, that does not mean it's not applicable in the rest of the Bible. It is, and that's how God think about the actual context, the historical textual context. Now, in Exodus 20, verse 5, God is making a statement as to how he relates to people, which is what we have been saying. And he is saying, when he thinks about visiting the iniquity, we saw in the definition of the text that there are positive and negative effects. This verse can be used for positive and negative. It's not always the same thing. If you do something that is against God, you're not the only one affected by it. You may not directly be involved, but there is an influence. If in a family, the head of the family, let's say, is against God, I think we had spoken about this before, there is a great likelihood that those who come after the head of this family, the children, the people around, it is unlikely that the things that they get involved in as being part of the family will not be repeated in their own personal context and from generation to generation. So the idea of visiting includes that as well. This is why the different versions use different words, because some believe that this is what the idea is. It is something that is transmitted from generation to generation. Therefore, the same consequences will apply from the father to the child, and so on and so forth. And some others think, no, God is imposing the judgment of the fathers upon the children. But we know this is not the case, because Ezekiel 18:20. And not only that, the entire behavior of God has shown it's not the case. Everyone has to be judged by God for their own actions. But the actions of some have an influence on the actions of others. So in one way or another, there is a consequence and a link that is established between the two, and God does not separate those. Are you with me?
Yeah.
I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Yeah. So, Pedro, in relation to my question that I was going to ask before, I want to just touch on that now. So, there might be some viewers, Pedro, who are thinking that, well, actually, what you're saying in the text that we've read does somehow reflect on God's character. Because why can't we decide for ourselves what we want to do without God blessing or harming us, but particularly harming us?
You see, this is interesting. You say particularly harming us, because we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem.
No, we don't, do we? Really?
Yeah, we don't have a problem with blessing, right?
No, we don't. We like blessings. Love them.
Okay, so God
We'll
says,
take the blessings.
God says,
Yes.
so God says, If you go there, you are going to find no people will understand blessings mostly in material possessions. If you go
Yes.
over there, you're going to find uh, a gold mine, let's say,
Mm.
and you quickly run there and you find that gold mine. What made you run there? Is that obedience?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, what made you find that gold mine? Is that obedience?
Yes.
Well, there
Yeah.
are no two ways about it.
Well,
It's obedience. If you did not
Yes.
yeah.
go there,
Yeah, it
if
is
you
You
did
wouldn't.
not
obedience.
go
Yeah.
there, yes, if you did not go there, you would not find that gold mine because God came and told you, go there and you will find that gold mine. It wasn't in your mind. You didn't dream that from yourself.
Yeah.
He gave it to you. So by the fact of going there, you have obeyed and you have found that gold mine, right? And you become a trillionaire and you're quite happy. Obedience works. But how fair would it be? How fair would it be that you get the same from God in terms of how what happens to you when you disobey?
Mm.
Now, here is what I want to say that would explain this. Listen, this world does not belong to us. We don't
True.
own this world.
Yeah.
God does. And now I'm talking about your question. Why can't we just decide for ourselves without having God to bless or harm us? Because, we just want to do our own thing. We do not own this world, do not own the planet. God does. I want you to read three texts: Genesis 1, which you know, Psalm 24, 1, as well as Psalm 103, verse 3. Sorry.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's from the King James Version. And then the Lord owns the earth and all it contains, the world and all who live in it. And that's from the New English Translation. Again, back to the KJV, King James Version. Know ye that the Lord he is God. It is he that made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture.
So, just from a logical perspective, when you hear that, don't we understand the general idea and the general rule of what property ownership involves in this world? Don't we know what property ownership involves in this world? I mean, have you ever had something that you would not allow people to do whatever they want with it because
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
yours? Have you ever had anything that you would establish the rules and regulations within that thing can be used and dealt with because it is yours?
Yeah.
So what problem do we have with God establishing the rules about how we are
True.
going to use this world that does not belong to us but to Him, which
Yeah.
He gave us in His own terms?
Yes. Yeah.
Why
Good point.
would we have an issue with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it's our humanity, and we think we own everything that we have.
Yeah.
That's our
Also,
problem.
So we don't.
Pedro, I just wanted to add just quickly that that my personal thoughts are, based on the word of God, is that the rules, the guidelines, the commandments, the doctrines that God gives us are for our ultimate good. So the commandments, the directions, the guidelines, like every instruction that God gives us on how to live our lives is for our own good. So when we go against that, then there are consequences that ultimately work against us. And it makes sense. Like, we always use the analogy that, oh, if you're a car manufacturer and you manufacture a car and you give a manual to the car owner to say you should put diesel in this car, the car manufacturer knows what's best for that car. So if you go against that and put something else in that car, then the car's not going to run. And it's the same thing with us, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, physically, like the different dimensions of our lives. God gives us directions in order to guide us, to protect us, and to give us abundant life. And when we do go against that and do our own thing, then there is a consequence. You know, we'll sow the consequence of disobedience to a God that gives us those rules for our own good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you've said it all. That is what it is. But at a logical level, ultimately, this is what we're going to say. But at a logical level, dealing with things that we understand, because you may say this to some people, and they would think this is circular reasoning. You're just repeating what the Bible is conditioning you to say. But yes, you're just saying things the Bible is conditioning you to say. But if you were to think about it, and I'm not saying this is not true, I'm saying this is true, but somebody may have this idea. So what you need to do is to allow the person to think for themselves, because the person can tell you, I don't need God to tell me this so that it's my own good, for my own good. I don't need that. I don't see this. But if that person understands, let's say, what ownership involves, property ownership rules involved, and that person understands, you know what, I did not make this world. I'm enjoying the benefit of being in this world. But then you need to ask yourself the question, then who made this world? And if somebody made this world, do the rules, the ownership rules apply? And are you able to understand and accept those those ownership rules? Now, if we go back to the story of Job, and this is exactly what God is going to do with Job. Read for me Job 38 verses 4 to 7, please.
Okay, I'm reading from the New Living Translation. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying lines? What supports its foundation, and who laid its cornerstone? As the morning star sang together and all the angels shouted for joy.
You see, God could have easily, it's God speaking now to Job at the end of his story with his friends, and him justifying himself, saying, I've done nothing wrong, and the friends telling him, yes, you did everything wrong, otherwise you would not be in this situation. And he's questioning God, and God could have told him, listen, I know what is best for you. You don't question my wisdom and my abilities to manage your life. But what does God do? God, over 2 chapters, is going to ask him a series of questions. About what? About property ownership. You see, that will allow him at the end of the story to reflect in a way that he could see himself in this, because Job was a big man. He had a lot of properties and a lot of people working for him and so on and so forth. So he knew about ownership, what ownership involves. So these questions, if you can put it back for me, please. These questions that God is asking here. Where were you when I laid the foundation? Think about this. You have something against God. I mean, not Job, but let's say you hate his ways on this planet. Yeah? And you don't like his rules, you know. And he comes and says, where were you when I made this planet that you disputing with me about in terms of how it should be run? Where were you when I made the You see, yes. Where were you when I made I laid the foundations of the world? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretch out the surveying lines? Look at this. I mean, what support? I mean, this one, and the picture is really nice. Keep it there, because you could bring the scientists, the top people that we have today, who could tell you everything about how the universe works. So many of them could tell you, but you know what? None of them could answer these questions right there. Because you know what? These are not questions about how the universe works. God knows that you made your research, you've come up with your theories, and nobody will stop you from spilling them out. Right? So he's not asking about how it works. These questions are ownership questions. Are you with me? You can bring all the great minds together. None of them, not one, that's what none means, not one will be able to give you an answer to any of these questions. And I remind you the questions: who laid the foundations? Who stretched out the line? Who determined the measurements? Who laid the cornerstone? You know, none of them will be able to answer these questions, because it doesn't deal with hypothesis, it doesn't deal with theories, it doesn't deal with whatever you can come up with in your mind or have gathered around, however true it may be. It deals with the question of ownership, because you know, at the end, this is what is at the center of our behavior in terms of why can't we just decide for ourselves what we want to do? Well, the text says you didn't make yourself, right?
Okay.
So there is an ownership question here. And you know what? This is only at a basic level. This is only at a basic level. That's where we start. But we could go deeper with that. And that depth is not something that any one of us ignores or doesn't know about. How much do we understand? Let me just ask this question, and I could ask it to those great minds, scientific minds, those cosmologists. How much of the invisible forces that permeates this world do you know and understand and can describe through the formulas that you have to explain this, that, and the other? How much of this? Let's go to a deeper level. Let's go to what we call a spirit level. That means a level that you experience but you don't see.
Yes.
Don't we experience things that we do not see? Let me go back to the story of Job again with you. You didn't know that story was so rich, but it is. Let's go to that deeper level. Read for me Job chapter 1, verses 7 to 12, please.
The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From roving about on the earth and from walking back and forth across it." So the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord, "Is it for nothing that Job fears God? Have you not made a hedge around him and his household and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock have increased in the land. But extend your hand and strike everything he has, and he will no doubt curse you to your face." So the Lord said to Satan, "All right then, everything he has is in your power. Only do not extend your hand against the man himself." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord.
From this account, we can see that there is a level of spirituality that is involved in our lives that we do not see. There is no equipment, there is no technical advancement in this world that can capture this and put it on screen for us, so that I'm talking in truth, so that we can be aware of it. But does he not exist? So there is a spiritual level that permeates reality that we do not necessarily understand, and that level of spirituality works
True.
for and against us, or can work for and against us. And the thing is, there is nothing we can do about it because we did not create this world. So
True.
when we came, that level of spirituality existed already. We just came to enjoy whatever is happening. So whether you are aware of it or not, whether your brain can capture that or not, it does not do away with the reality
Yes.
that it is. Does that make sense? And you
Yeah.
have to include this in your thinking when you want to create a third way. Are you with me? You have to have that in your calculations when you want to question God as to whether or not he should not be involved in you doing whatever you want on his earth. Are you with me? Now, everyone is involved in this. Let me have you read for me. I know time is short, but read for me Matthew chapter 12 and verse 30, please.
I'm reading from the New Living Translation. Anyone who isn't with me opposes me, and anyone who isn't working with me is actually working against me. Shall I also read John 15:4?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I'm reading from the Revised Standard Version. You are my friend if you do what I command you.
You see, from this text, nobody is asking you about what it should be or it should not be. This world that you enjoy and dispute over with God is divided spiritually into two camps or sides. Whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, it is a reality that you actually cannot escape. And the one who created it in the first text says, listen, anyone who isn't with me is against me. Anyone who isn't working with me is actually working against me. Now, where is the third way? Where is the third way?
There isn't
It
one.
is not, there isn't one. But this is the context within which you exist. This is your inescapable reality. Now, what you need to know is that whatever decision you're going to make in life, it will have to involve those two possibilities. And that is where your choice lies. Now, read for me Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 26 to 28 to bring this to a close.
Look, today, I am giving you the choice between a blessing and a curse. You will be blessed if you obey the commands of the Lord your God that I am giving you today. But you will be cursed if you reject the commands of the Lord your God and turn away from him and worship gods you have not known before.
And
Two
this
choices.
is this is all that there is. There is no third way that matters in this world when it comes to ultimate reality, when it comes to the heart of things that permeate every decision, every experience, everything that we do in life. And when you side knowingly or unknowingly with one of those sides, where you have those two forces against each other, when you side with one, you have automatically sided against the other. Does that make
That's
sense?
right.
So,
Absolutely.
according to the rule of ownership, you don't have the possibility. It's like you renting your house and you have a contract, and the person takes the contract and signs it because that person knows it's your house, but then starts living in the house and starts doing whatever crosses their minds. What are you gonna do?
Nothing.
The law of ownership will dictate to you and to that person what's going to take place, what's going to follow. Are you with me? And this is just a
Yeah.
pale comparison. Now, what we are saying is there are things in this life that we cannot change. And this is just one of those things. What cannot be changed is the fact that we exist in this context. So you cannot come up with the idea, now I'm going to live outside of this context and I'm going to create a third way.
Yeah.
It's not possible. You have to side with one against the other. That's your choice.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So just quickly, Pedro, are you saying that as a matter of fact, we don't actually have control over our lives? And if that is the case, how is that supposed to make God look good?
How does
Okay,
that
good
make
question. Good question.
how is that supposed to make God look good? I don't know if we're supposed to make God look good. I think he looks good on his own, by himself. But I do understand your question. As a matter of fact, as a matter of fact, God already looks good when he gives you the choice to escape evil,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
In this life, you can choose not to be destroyed by Satan. Doesn't that make God look good?
Yes.
Yeah.
In this life, you can choose not to be abused and eventually discarded from the universe because you would have followed Satan.
Yeah.
And it is God who offers that to you. Doesn't that make him look good?
Yes.
In this life, You can choose to enjoy the benefit of a relationship with God that could keep you alive forever, as opposed to live a life of misery, suffering, and pain, abusing yourself and others while you live that life to eventually be destroyed, because God wants to have that and give it to you. Doesn't that make God look good?
Yes.
So this is the context within which we exist. And I want you to read a last text for me, which is Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 to 26, please.
I'm reading from the Revised Standard Version. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord.
You see, more than looking good, we can see that God is good. And he's the best side that we can be on. We do have the choice to do that or not to do it. Now, to finish this completely, no one says that God is unfair when all the good things that God promises, that if we do according to his will happen. It does not make sense. It will not hold in the court of law to hold against him the opposite, which is, if he told us that these bad things were going to happen to us, and they do, because we made the choice, it will not hold in the court of justice, in no court of justice, including the human courts. So we don't really have a ground to think that there is something wrong with doing God's will or else. When God created the universe, he made the earth to go around the sun. To mark a complete circle would be a year. Nobody argues with that. You know why? Because nobody can change it.
That's
When
right.
God made the earth to revolve on itself right while revolving around the sun, nobody has an issue with that. Right? Why? Because we accept this is the context within which we exist. And for everything, it's the same thing. Rather, we enjoy it. Who is going to try and say, you know what, let's stop the earth running around the sun for a minute? No, 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 no. We want to do everything to keep it going like this, because we know if we don't, that means catastrophe. Does that make sense? It's the same thing when it comes to our personal lives with God. If God says it has to go like this, while turning on itself, turning around the sun, it's our best option. And if we choose to do something else, we have decided for ourselves to opt out of the blessing. So the punishment is not God's responsibility. It is ours. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So let's just lean on God's mercy, grace, love, and care that is renewed every day, and no one will have an issue with God being unfair.
True. True. That was an excellent study, Pedro. I want to thank you for that. And viewers, thank you for joining us once again for another study with TBP. Now, as always, it's from the book, The Word of God, that we take everything. And if you have any doubts, go back and look at the text that we used in this study. And I also want to say, please share this study with someone who needs to know why do we have to do as God says or else, because that was a topic for today. So please continue to like, share, and subscribe, and please give us a thumbs up because it shows people that we have a channel that is worthy of sharing to this lost and dying world. So until next time, thank you, Pedro, Colleen, and Simon, for this wonderful study that we've had today. God bless you all, and goodbye.
What is RIBU? The Research Institute for Biblical Understanding, a learning and training center for all those who want a deeper, stronger, clearer, and more informed understanding of the Bible in all its various and important aspects. It's there to develop and equip you with proper skills in the field of biblical studies. Regardless of where you're at now, RIBU will take you further on that journey to reach your full potential in understanding the Bible. We are now in the process of registering people for the different plans and programs that RIBU offers. Wherever you are in the world, RIBU is there for you.